see children in the context of their environments, their home environments, their school environments, and in terms of our adult services, their work environments. So single point of access, it gets referred on our electronic patient record. We put young people into an assessment and we communicate with the family. The assessment, so assessment's normally done involving a psychiatrist plus or minus a psychologist, and then the post-diagnostic support, so where appropriate medication, psychoeducational support, CBT support, and then shared care with the GPs to make sure that young people and families aren't having to come up to us the whole time to get their repeat prescriptions. Care plan reviews, so monitoring how things are going, helping families and carers where possible. Usually kids with ADHD will stay open to us. They get 6 monthly reviews with us. We are working towards sharing that out more with the GPs. We do the prescribing, we do psychoeducational work, psychological work if needed, but time limited. Because remember, there's no such thing as a brain scan that 100% says ADHD, no ADHD. Because there's always a degree of subjectivity. They do all the tests and all the things, but actually the bottom line is the way you make a diagnosis is a clinical interview. You use some questionnaires and you try and triangulate the information. So the key bit is to have regular conversations with the nursery group, the school group, the sports club, and I would say if there are consistent problems that are being noted by, parents, others over, at least 6 months, then start asking questions about, well, it hasn't just come and gone, there's something that's sticking. If then you're worried about ADHD or ASD, provided you've got a good enough GP, I would always say, look, run it by a GP, okay? And just be explicit and say, look, I'm worried. Now, if they're a good GP, now unfortunately not many GPs know enough about mental health, but we know that ADHD, ASD runs in families. So if you know that in your family there is a history of ADHD, ASD, there is up to an 80% risk that a child will have something like that, or dyspraxia, or learning difficulties. So the odds game is a good one to sort of say, not to scare you, but just to be realistic. Then what I would do, check out with the GP, check out with the school, and sort of say with people that you trust, look, do you think this is a possible option? If it's even the merest whiff of a possible option, explore it. You've got nothing to lose, because then the process would be, okay, whether you go to a paediatrician or whether you go to Camhs, is get a referral. You'll get screening questionnaires sent out, okay? You'll then have an assessment, and then that's when the ball rolls. The only difficulty in my experience that people can come across is because it's a developmental condition, the younger the child is, the range of possible explanations is massive. So if your child is, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, without a whole bunch of other bits of evidence, and the main one I would go with is its family history, you can't really hand on heart be confidently saying that a child would have ADHD. It might still be worth testing it out. If the child is a bit older, for me, the key benchmark of trying to see whether ADHD is part of the picture is, has there been a drop-off in educational attainment? Okay, so did they start off, let's say, average, and as the pressure of school has got greater, they're starting to drop off for no other apparent reason? So there isn't some big bereavement that's happened at home, parents haven't just divorced, the usual stuff that could destabilise a kid. If that is happening, for me, in addition to the sort of questionnaires and asking the sensible questions, that is a real key point. And if it means you have to go to the teachers and say, look, I know you're under a lot of pressure, I know that schools often deal on the basis of average, don't take no for an answer if there has been a drop-off in functioning, because for me the key bit is we all want our kids to reach their full potential. So it's whether they've dropped off from whatever level they were at before. If it was autism, it would be a slightly different thing around, communication, sociability, etc., etc. So EPs are often the first point of call for the schools, but they are so stretched that I worry that they can't deliver the interventions that are needed, because EPs, in my view, are key for doing the cognitive assessments at school and for starting the process of helping schools and the SENCO identify that there's a problem. But as many of you will know, essentially there are 3 levels of EP intervention. One is SENCO phones EP, just has a chat. Next level of intervention is SENCO phones EP, EP comes in, speaks to class teacher and suggests something. Third intervention is comes into school, speaks to teacher, does a full assessment of the child, provides a report. It's part of an EHCP process, it's part of SENCO, it might then lead to a referral to Camhs. When I speak to education colleagues, the head of SEN for example, I go and say, look, an assessment is an assessment. You can't discriminate, or teachers can't discriminate. Again, in my experience, there's a lot of misinformation around EHCPs. The first misinformation that often happens is families, and sometimes teachers will be told, or SENCOs will be told by their heads, you have to have a diagnosis to have an EHCP. Yes. No, you don't. You need to demonstrate needs. Diagnosis might be helpful as a supplementary question to ask, because if there is a diagnosis to be had, then that will inform, or might inform, treatment. But it's need first. I think there is a lot of myth out there that sort of says that ADHD equals bad parenting. Yeah. It isn't. It's not bad parenting. You might be trying to do the best you can. So all I would say is, look, go with your gut instinct, get support from a GP, a friend, the teacher, or none of them, and just push for an assessment, and then at least you'll be able to work out whether you do or you don't. Increasingly in Camhs, I think there is still a battle to be had against stigma, but the reality is actually if you don't get the right intervention, then who's going to suffer? It's going to be the children and then the families. So I think Camhs services still have a bit to do, a long way to go, but I just would not, I would listen to your sort of gut instinct.